Welcome into K-State Online. I am Mason Voth. That is Drew Galloway. We are back. Welcome into the KSO show. It is Monday, May 5th. I've been on a hiatus for a little bit. No, I haven't been vacationing. I haven't been slacking. I've been dealing with a second child. They are little blessings, as I told Drew Galloway off the air. They just so happen to poop a lot. And that, first little stretch, boy, do they want to eat nonstop. Well, I don't know if they want to. Sometimes they do. Other times it's because the doctor tells you they need to eat every 3 hours. So you're going to do it because I don't want to keep going in for weight checks every 2 days and all this other stuff. It's a whole product of a lot of things, Drew. But we're going to talk about K-State. We got a lot to get to on that front. This is going to be really about everything that happened while I was away. We're going to give you some commentary on it. We're also going to look ahead to what you can expect over the next couple of months because we are officially starting to get into that stretch where things are going to slow down a lot more in the news department for K-State. Fortunately, still some of that rolling in. We're also going to anticipate more things to happen, or at least they need to happen based off of what is on tap for basketball, football, all that stuff. We'll get into all of it today. But before we do that, no better way to get back into the flow of things than talking about the Heirlingus College Football Classic because we are in May right now. And May is the 5th month of the year. August, when this game takes place, is the 8th month of the year. So we are encroaching on being 3 months away from kickoff of K-State, Iowa State in the 2025 Heirlingus College Football Classic over in Dublin, Ireland. You can visit cats2ireland.com if you still want to get everything in order to go over there. More than 3 months, that's plenty of time to plan an Irish getaway. Also, probably still bakes in about a month and a half, where if you don't have a passport like I used to not have, you can still slack a little bit like I did for a long time. That window is running out on you, but you could still slack a little bit. Get the passport, go to cats2ireland.com and get yourself over to the Emerald Isle for K-State, Iowa State, week 0, game number 1 of the college football season. Drew, do you have an Ireland fun fact? You've probably been sitting on a bunch of them for a week and a half. Your wife's probably sick of hearing about Ireland because you haven't been able to tell everybody here about it. So throw something at us.
Yeah, we're locked and loaded. We're ready to go. So the game, August 23rd. August in Ireland is the beginning of their harvest season. And with that, it's one of the months with the longest daylight hours in Ireland. On average, 16 to 18 hours of daylight compared to 12 in Manhattan, Kansas in August.
Number one, start of harvest season. Great that they've got K-State and Iowa State coming over there while that's happening. And the daylight situation I did know about only because of watching however many British Opens and seeing just how late into the day that they'll play over there. Because, here you get to like 8 o'clock, 8:30, they're blowing the horn, got to get guys in. They'll push right up until like 9 o'clock or sometimes past it over there with guys playing, which, we're going to miss the British Open taking place in Northern Ireland by about a month when we're over there. So I did know about that. I like it in terms of when there are sporting events happening in that part of the world that I'm viewing here in the United States. I will be interested to see how I feel about it when I'm there, because I actually like when it's dark out most of the time. If I'm not playing golf or, it involves my well-being outside, I like it being dark. I would rather it be dark outside than light.
No, I can see that. That's just a lot of time for daylight. Like I'm just like thinking about when it would actually be dark, and that's just not a lot of time.
No, that's I know somebody that likes their sleep at KSO. I'm not saying it's Drew. Drew does like his sleep, but I think DY likes his sleep even more. He is consistently the first one to sleep on road trips. So this is probably going to impact him more than it impacts us over there. I would guess.
Agree. Yeah, I would 100% agree with that.
He's looking around. He's like, I can't pass out at 9:30 because there's still light flashing in at me. So we'll monitor that situation and see how the sleeping habits change for one Derek Young. All right, let's dive into everything that's gone on since I disappeared for a week and a half. For those concerned, interested, whatever, there was a lot of it in the thread on KSO that I was hoping would elicit some funny guesses as I had to sit in a hospital room for like 2.5 hours the morning of the baby coming. And I said, let's see what everybody thinks this name is going to be. The name of baby number 2 in the Voth household is Hattie. So there you go. Hattie Voth, welcome home. Let's start with K-State basketball because we've alluded to a lot of different things happening with K-State basketball this offseason. And it's been, okay, they're going to happen. We just don't know the timing of it. Some of them may not actually get announced at any specific point. The good news is we have heard some things with K-State basketball now. Let's start with the player they added. Andre Kostich is a player from Serbia that the Wildcats added. He is going to be of a true freshman age. Some of these European guys that we've talked about, they're going to come over and they're going to be 20, 21, 22 years old playing as freshmen in college in the United States. Not the case for Andre Kostich. Yeah, it may even skew a little bit more towards the younger side of things once he gets to K-State, but he is going to be a member of this basketball roster. That means K-State now has 6 open spots. We expect them to only use 4 more of those on scholarship players, but this is the one, Drew, that we were anticipating because it seems like the addition of Andre Kostich, he should be penciled in to probably be this team's best player as it stands right now. And if he's not, I don't think K-State is going to have the season that most people would want them to.
Yeah, I think that is right on the dot with how you should feel about Andre Kostich, which, by the way, I blew Scott Wildcat's mind when I said that the J is silent in Andre.
He didn't realize that.
Well, Scott and names don't always flow well. It's one of the things that he always says. So he let me do the pronunciation for Andre Kostich.
That's fair. I will say, like, he's going to listen to this and he's going to think that we're taking shots. I just, you see a name like that from that part of the world, I think there are going to be some curveballs in pronunciation. You got to be on board with them. The one that threw me, I was saying Kostich until Mitch Fortner said Kostich, and we know how important getting every aspect of the name right is to Mitch.
Yes.
He was the only one saying Moby's last name right for a stretch there. So
yeah, that threw me until like 45 seconds ago when you said Kostich, and it was because of Mitch. So with that, like,
it still doesn't feel natural to me. And again, Mitch has been wrong before. He is the one that tried saying that it was pronounced Rihanna to John Kurtz and I on the game one time when we said, no, it's Rihanna. Here's what I will say. The public would say it is Rihanna. Everybody's going to refer to her as Rihanna. Some of us would call her Riri, some of her top Spotify listeners, I would say. But in Mitch's defense, there is video out there of her saying Rihanna. So even though Mitch was wrong, he was technically right on Rihanna. And so that means, take his word on the Andre Kostich thing.
Yeah, but Kostich, as a player, has probably the highest ceiling of any player that K-State has added this offseason. If you want to go even further, this is probably the most exciting add to me that Jerome Tang has had since Keontae Johnson. Like, I think that Kostich could be an NBA player, and to be honest with you, could be an NBA player as soon as next year. Like, until proven otherwise, like, this is a guy that could only be at K-State for 1 year because he is already on NBA mock draft boards as like a mid to late second round pick going into the year. So you'd anticipate with him coming over to the U.S., playing college basketball, you hope that he keeps growing in the basketball realm and ends up being a guy that could be like a fringe lottery pick at K-State. And if he has that kind of season, it means that K-State had a really, really good season, most likely, because he was their best player and could really lead them. I've kind of thrown this out there a few times that, like, Yegor Dimon, before he went to BYU, wasn't like some crazy highly ranked player until like later on in the process. gets to BYU, is now about to be a lottery pick. This is something that K-State is wanting to do with Kostich coming in, because he's just a guy that has a lot of different skills, will never really be something that elite athlete will never be something that really crosses everybody's mind for him, but he can do so many other things. He's good at back cuts. He's good at passing the ball. He can shoot. He is like in that 6'6" range and has handles like a guard. Like he is kind of what everybody stereotypes European basketball players to be in one player.
Oh, is he soft, Drew?
No, probably
Okay.
not. I would imagine no.
I actually think, the soft European stereotype has gone out the window. I think we've seen a lot more of the Euro guys come over in the NBA, and they might be some of the more hardcore dudes. Now, like, I don't want to mess with them. So,
the other thing that I talked about with Scott Wildcat, and we'll reference him again on our Bosco's Boys episode that I had talking about Kostich, was that it kind of goes a little bit overlooked, but him being the best player in Serbia is not a bad basketball country. Serbia is number 2 in the FIBA world rankings right now. Like Nikola Jokic is pretty good at basketball, I would say.
Yeah.
And they have a lot of solid NBA players to go with that. So I think that that's something that has kind of gone a little bit under the radar because Serbia has become one of the best basketball countries in the world right now.
Who would you say is the most famous Serbian athlete? Novak Djokovic or Nikola Jokic?
Probably Novak for now.
Yeah. I would say Novak. The tennis worldwide appeal, it's probably there a little bit more than Jokic, but I just throw it out there.
If Serbia makes a run in the 2028 Olympics, I would maybe say Jokic.
Yeah. Well, if you're going to, you have to finally take the gold medal away from the Americans for anybody to actually think that an international basketball player is more noteworthy than, one of the greatest tennis players of all time, because they have a little bit more worldwide appeal. All right. So, look, I like the addition of Kostich. This is a good pickup for K-State, I think. But like I've said numerous times, good pickups this offseason, they don't necessarily mean a lot, because we've seen things that I've liked the last 2 off seasons and it's resulted in nothing. So this is where, it's, the meme of the person where she's sitting there at work and one guy comes up to her and she's like infatuated with what the dude has to say. And then somebody else comes up and it's the exact same thing. She's like, "You gross." This is like one of those that if Jerome Tangen made the NCAA tournament the last 2 years and it happens, I'm like wanting to kiss him on the cheek, Bruce Weber style. But because they've missed the tournament the last 2 years and things don't seem to be in a good spot, I'm not going to HR and being like, "Get this dude away from me right now." But I am at least like, "Oh, nope, sorry, I'm good. I got plans. Send me Chris Kleiman over here. Tell me about the guys he's bringing in, because I don't want to listen to that right now." It's just I'm wading through the basketball stuff with a lot of caution, because I don't want to mislead people. I certainly don't want myself or others to sign up for being hurt again on this matter. But I think Kostich is a good pickup, and like I said, I think he, as it stands right now, probably needs to be your best player next year. Now, does that mean that he is like an all Big 12 first team guy? No, not necessarily, because if you look at what the roster has at this point in time, like Abdi Bashir is coming in, he can score, he can do some things on the offensive end to where he can be, your second best player. And if those are your 2 best guys, it's going to be about how the rest of the roster fits. And Kostich certainly makes the case that right now you can show how some of this is going to fit together a little bit better. Now, as we have talked about at other points through this process, though, we still think that Elias Rapiak is going to be in the fold. You need to add him. If that happens, that's probably your second or third best player on the roster. So we know that one of those 4 scholarship spots will probably end up in his hands. I still think that you need somebody that you trust to handle the ball late in the game. They don't have to be scoring when they have the ball, but you need to have somebody that knows, all right, minute and a half left. We got to keep this thing under control. We trust this person to run the offense, hold the ball for us, all that stuff. And then, from that point, there are some other needs that you would probably have, but they're not as heavy. And I think you're just trying to look for the best thing remaining in this transfer portal right now. The portal's been closed for however long now. We're still waiting to see what K-State does with all these spots. So it's important to see how they finish, but Kostich was a big part in making this team look like something that might have a chance to get back to the NCAA tournament next season.
Yeah, you can squint a little bit and see the roster coming together a little bit more. I think at a minimum, it's something that DY has pointed out on the board too. I think that you're going to get a team that at worst is going to play their ass off every night. Like you didn't really get that from this last team, as we know.
Yes.
So I think that you look at like Nate Johnson, you look at Kamari McGriff, you look at Abdi Bashir, you look at Kostich, like all of those guys are going to be guys that really bring it every night. I mean, McGriff won a leadership award in the CAA. Nate Johnson was not only player of the year in the MAC, but was defensive player of the year. So that's coming together better. What kind of concerns me a little bit more is we're sitting here on May 5th, and I don't really know outside of Elias Rapiake like what another target really looks like for K-State right now.
Yeah, because there were a couple of other guys that were in the fold that seemed to be in the mix. I think those are going to go elsewhere for K-State at this point now. So it's going to be interesting to see if the move for what K-State has remaining. I think that there's still probably, even with the other things they had lined up, probably still at least one college transfer. And then do you go the rest of the international route? Now that I think that there might have to be a little bit of a reset there, is there going to be a massive wave of international talent? Like we know that Jerome Tang, Anthony Winchester, specifically those two guys did a lot of due diligence overseas at the start of the offseason. Are there more guys that they have that they think, all right, let's see if we can make this happen? Or are they going to bring their sights back domestically and see if there's anything with college experience dudes in the portal that makes sense? It'll be interesting to follow along with, but this is an okay offseason right now for K-State. They're having to do things a little bit differently, and I think that has to do with their performance the last 2 years. They weren't going to be able to get the serious difference makers in the transfer portal this year because it was going to, number one, take probably a lot more money. Like those guys are going to know what Coleman Hawkins got last year, and that's probably going to be their jumping off point for a team like K-State, especially because you say, you didn't make the tournament last year. You didn't make the year before that. Like, what am I signing up for? I need a little bit of an extra guarantee if I'm going to walk into that situation as opposed to, oh, yeah, I'll go play at Alabama. I'll go play at Duke. Teams that have been in the Final Four the last 2 seasons. It's a lot easier for those guys to do that than what it would be for K-State. So I think that's where we're, for what the situation called for, they've changed up their approach a little bit. They needed to, and I think they're off to an okay start. We'll just see how it fully finishes out in the coming weeks and, could be months because we know how deep some of this off-season addition stuff can roll into June, July at times in basketball.
Yeah, I'd say that the off-season, like describing it in one word so far, would be like clunky. Like I'd have this as like a solid C of an off-season because you have brought in some nice pieces, but also you wanted to retain a lot of guys and you didn't retain the guys that you wanted to retain. So then you kind of blew up the roster again. You also probably lost maybe your best assistant. Still haven't really hired a replacement. Yeah. It's been a little bit clunky, I think would be the word.
Let me tie this all into the next and the final basketball topic that we're going to hit on here today. You say it's like a C type of offseason right now for them. I'd give them a C plus to be nice. Like I like what they've done. The C plus I think is coming from a, like, how would this stack up compared to the rest of college basketball type addition wise thing? But that kind of offseason being the thing for K-State may not be the worst thing possible, because that's just from a, like a basketball excitement side. We were excited for moves they made the last 2 off seasons from a basketball standpoint, but we didn't know that Arthur Kaluma would have like a shadow benching early in the season because of, some question of his buy-in. Certainly all the stuff that went down with Doug McDaniel and Coleman Hawkins and other guys last season. Like, we just didn't know that was going to be the case. Some of it also predictable, that a couple of the guys that were brought in last year playing the roles that they had to last year, they probably weren't going to be good or contributors. I don't know that we expected it to be as bad as it was for some guys, but it was not great. Like, this team needed to have a little bit more of a tame offseason in the hopes of you get solid players, and then hopefully the mentality and the attitude is what's able to push you over the top, because that stuff is still important, especially in a sport like basketball. And I think that the addition of Bill Peterson to the coaching staff, which was one of the staff moves that was made while I was out, that would also go into the category of, it's like a C plus type of move. It's nothing flashy. It's not going to kill you, but it's different than what you would expect in this age of college basketball. But I think this team kind of needs something like that. Like, this staff has not had a real true veteran voice on their bench in however many years that they've been here, going on, getting ready to enter season number 4. Like, Jerome Tang was the most seasoned guy they had over there, and he'd never been a head coach before at this level of basketball. So he's still learning through things. And then behind him, like, Kevin Sutton was probably like the second most experienced guy, and then he left and things had been a struggle. I think you need more veteran voices in the background of Bill Peterson with all the different things that he's done coaching wise. He has seen really good teams in, like good leagues, high end leagues, that being a staff member at Baylor during the same time that they won a national championship there, but also spending time on teams that aren't that great, leagues that are, mid to low major. Also spent time coaching in the G League, the D League, whatever it was back when he was coaching from 2014 to 2017 as a head coach. Like, he has seen a lot of different levels, types of basketball players and all that. And I think that it's going to be valuable to have somebody of that experience on this team and on staff for K-State. I really think that's something that they probably needed. This is not like some home run for them. This isn't some game changer, but it's one of those where it's a little bit more of a mature approach to how things are being conducted for this basketball program right now. And that was sorely needed after the last 2 years.
Yeah, I would say not a home run, but probably a stand-up double. Like, everything that Bill Peterson brings to the table is just experience. You hit on some of the places that he's been, but like, he's the only person that I can think of that has experience at the D2 level, the D3 level, the junior college level, the NAIA level, at the NBA and the G League, and then high and low major college basketball. Like, he has really done it all. So to bring that in, and for him to already be in Manhattan before it was announced, I think that he's gone through workouts with some guys that have taken visits, went through workouts with some guys that were already on the team. And I think that it means something that you had a guy that has that level of experience, because he knows like what good players and what good habits look like. And that's just been something that has really been missing. So hopefully, like, the buy-in issues that you've seen over the last 2 seasons, like somebody like Bill Peterson could see that. Even like, he's not going to be an active recruiter. And he even said that in his press conference, that he's not going to be an active recruiter, but you probably would see him as soon as somebody gets on campus and visiting, kind of asking about the habits, going through workouts and seeing like what kind of habits that those players have. And maybe you have less buy-in issues because he's somebody that it's like, oh no, I've seen this before. Like, let's stay away. Because I think that there's a chance that has already happened with a couple people, not just on the team, but if that have came to visit K-State.
And you would also hope that this would profile as less of like a yes man in the Jerome, to what you're saying, like to the Jerome Tang situation where, it, it feels like, and we don't know for certain the extent of some of this stuff, but you need probably a little bit more of a voice on this team that is going to call out the crap of guys. So yes, like you're saying, the stuff before you even touch the dude and bring him back, bring him into your program, like that's valuable. But also then once they're here, like, do you have somebody that's going to say, knock it off and mean it? Or do you have somebody in, like behind closed doors that is going to speak out and say, hey, like, go to Jerome Tang and say, hey coach, like, I get what you're doing here. I think this needs to be the approach, or I think we should stay away from this. I think we should do that. Like, I think there just needs to be a little bit more of that. I think this is a program the last 2 years that to me has come across doing a lot more things based off of emotion than thinking with their head. And hopefully a guy like Bill Peterson is going to come in and with all the different levels that he's experienced, all the different years that he's been involved in basketball. I mean, you go back and look, his first credited coaching gig at the college level was in 1980. So this guy's going on 45 years of experience in college basketball or higher. And you would hope with that, he's going to have seen some things, understand it a little bit better, and not just sit around and feel like he's grateful to be here. Because, like, let's be honest, while I think there are the staff members that are at K-State right now are capable and deserving of being at this level, like, it's these aren't handouts. Like, Jerome Tang wants to win. Like, he thinks the
Yeah.
guys that he has with him can win. He thinks that they are meant to be at this level right now. But I also think you look at the resume of a lot of these guys and the backgrounds of them, and you say, they probably feel like they owe a lot to Jerome Tang to be here. They're probably just thankful to be in this situation. Bill Peterson certainly probably grateful that he's getting to be on the coaching staff of a Big 12 team right now. But I also don't think that he's going to walk around and thinking that I need to bow down to Jerome Tang and thank him for this opportunity every single day, or like always stick to his side. I think you bring in a guy like Bill Peterson to try and change the attitude a little bit, or at least have somebody there that can bring in a different voice to you. So I look forward to seeing maybe the impact that has. And if we see any kind of tone change in the coaching staff as a whole, the players they bring in, just a lot of the attitude with the K-State basketball program. But I thought that the offseason that they're having with player additions paired with the Bill Peterson and the coaching change, that to me feels like one of those where, like you said, quit swinging for the fences if you can only get it to the warning track. Like, you see the hole in the shift, slap it through there and take that opposite field double that they're giving to you because everybody's, sagging over to the left side or whatever it may be. So I think it's good for K-State, and we'll see how it continues to develop out. And as we get closer and then into the season, how they speak about maybe some of the changes or what they feel to be different, because things have to be different this year. If we get to the start of conference play and things look similar to what they did last year, and this team is not looking like a good team and not an NCAA tournament team, that's a problem. Like, they didn't do what they needed to do. So we are going to need to, like, the answer from Jerome Tang, players, whoever, when we get to January, it should be, yeah, things are different this year because of this. Nothing's really changed that much.
I'll go further and say that in October at Big 12 basketball media days, somebody better say something about how much different this offseason has been.
Well, maybe a start at Big 12 media days would be your best players are actually there, all of them, because
that would be a step.
That's a problem. Year one of Jerome Tang, it wasn't a problem. You know who was at Big 12 media days? We talked to Marquise Noel. We talked to Keontae Johnson. And they said great things about basketball. They said great things about not basketball. I remember Keontae Johnson talking about his dogs. Like, seemed like guys that had their priorities on the court and off the court in the right place. And then year two, it's, why is Naquan Tomlin not here? And then last year, Why is Doug McDaniel not here? That is a problem. We're going to know pretty early on if Abdi Bashir is not at Big 12 Media Days, you got a problem. If one of the European guys, I guess you could say maybe you don't bring those guys because of this, but I'd like to see one of them there. Your best players need to be at the very first, forward-facing event of the college basketball season for you this year. That will tell us immediately.
You're putting a lot of pressure on Abdi Bashir. I would say that my candidates right now, Nate Johnson is for sure one to go to Kansas City.
Yeah.
And then my second one would
Nate Johnson feels like a lock at this point.
And then the second one, because it also depends on if they do 2 or 3, but my second one would probably be Abdi Bashir or maybe Kostich.
Yeah, they took 3 last year, right? It was Gasson, Coleman Hawkins, and Max Jones were there.
Maybe you get
Nate Johnson should be there. And here's the thing. This may be a bad process on my end. I expect guys that win Defensive Player of the Year to not really be much of a problem because you kind of have to work your butt off and do a lot of the right things and really be committed to some crap to be the Defensive Player of the Year. Like Barry Brown, guy was never a problem. You know what he did? He won Defensive Player of the Year. Not overly concerned about it. Think about all the stuff that Bob Huggins endured at West Virginia. You know who was never really a problem for him? Javon Carter. Yeah. So
we were 100% in sync there. That was crazy.
I just guys that play defense really well, there's a commitment aspect to it. You have to be talented, but you also have to just be committed to working your ass off and doing the right things. Nate Johnson, I expect him to be there, but I think Abdi Bashir needs to be there. He's coming in as this big scorer. He should be there. But we'll obviously discuss that when October rolls around, and we still got a ways to go until we get to October. All right, moving on. Let's dive into the football stuff real quick. We won't discuss this because we put out a video on it because we were prepared ahead of time. DJ Ackerson, the linebacker out of the state of Oklahoma, committed to K-State. He is creeping in on 4-star status that we've talked about. So that was an addition that K-State made on the football front. But there were a couple of other moves that were made. Some spring transfers. We weren't sure of how many spring transfers there would be for K-State after what they did in the winter portion of this. Roster limits, all this stuff going on. Chris Kleiman said that he thinks that they're at 107 right now, and they're going to kind of put a pause on telling guys to explore other options or whatever, cutting guys until the whole thing gets figured out. He's hopeful that they'll be able to bring some more of the walk-ons back into the program that announced that they were in the transfer portal. But K-State did add 3 collegiate transfers during this spring portal season, 2 offensive linemen and a running back. The running back, Antonio Martin, makes sense based off some of the things that we've heard of one transfer addition in Gabe Irvin. That it seems like maybe that's not trending towards a place where he's going to be able to give K-State much there. You can go look for that update over at KSO. It's not a bad thing in terms of Irvin, the person. I don't want people thinking that, but some other things out there. That's just unfortunate circumstance for a player, which seems to be something that K-State gets nailed by a couple times in the transfer portal here and there. But on the offensive lineman front, let's start there because running back Antonio Martin, that feels like more of a depth play. You know that Dylan Edwards and Joe Jackson are going to be your main guys there. There are already some dudes that were on the roster last year as true freshmen that you think could maybe get some snaps at that spot. Martin will probably be in the mix for that third running back spot, but not much of a worry. But football offensive line talk, JB Nelson, Terrence Enos, 2 additions out east, both from the state of Pennsylvania. JB Nelson from Penn State, Terrence Enos from Pitt. K-State adding 2 offensive linemen. Is this a scary sign for the K-StateOnline? Because the message all along seemed to be, hey, we added George Fitzpatrick in the offseason. They added Amos Talalele in the offseason. Okay, all these young guys that are younger guys that have been in the program, there's some experience, they're going to be ready, but there's still more offensive linemen coming into the mix. Is this a problem for K-State?
Is it scary? without seeing K-State practice and really knowing what a game one is going to look like, I'm gonna lean more towards no, because you can never have too many guys that can play on the offensive line. Number one, number two, even with a lot of the younger depth and the guys that are coming up that we're really excited about, I think that what this team specifically really needed were guys that were older, that had played a lot of snaps before. JB Nelson has played a lot of snaps at Penn State. Terrence Enos has played a lot of snaps at Pitt. And then both have kind of been spot starters on both teams' offensive line. So again, more experience, more depth. And then I think that both of these guys give you some flexibility. And really, I think that the biggest takeaway from Chris Kleiman's end of spring press conference was talking about how they needed to rotate on the offensive line more last year. And he thinks that that's why the offense really stalled out after the Houston, or like during and then post Houston game, was because the offensive line just, they were only playing 5-6 guys, maybe max per game. And those guys were just getting worn down and they couldn't get a good enough push. And now Chris Kleiman says that they have 8, maybe 9 guys that they can go to and play and feel comfortable playing with them. And they want to play all 9 because of that. And I think that the other part of that that really makes sense is, like, you kind of dig into K-State extending out their strength and conditioning portion of the winter workouts and only doing 10 spring practices because they wanted to really maximize that time. Then you add in 2 offensive linemen in the spring. You talk about how you want to rotate guys in more. You really start to think that a lot of what I think that they have come together collectively as a staff and said, like, this was our problem last year, was that I think that they thought that they got really worn down last year in November. And that ended up costing them potentially going to Arlington and really kind of falling flat on their face post Houston game.
Yeah.
So I think that you add these 2 older guys. Now you have a lot more guys with experience. JB Nelson can play on the interior and exterior. And then same with Terrence Enos. I'm to the point now where I would be a little bit surprised if in game one in Ireland, if JB Nelson isn't the starter at right tackle.
That's what I was going to ask you. JB Nelson feels like a guy to me that, yeah, they're going to rotate dudes, but if you're talking about pecking order of percentage of snaps, he feels like he's going to be a top 5 guy to me. Like, he is going to be essentially what you would refer to as a starter, your main option on the offensive line.
This is more big picture and is something that we've talked a little bit about, but for K-State to go out and make these 2 moves and to really get them done with relative ease, even with other teams trying to get involved for 2 experienced offensive linemen, I think that the ceiling with Brian LePack as the offensive line coach is through the roof. Like, I think that he can be even better than Connor Riley was, and I thought that Connor Riley was a really good offensive line coach.
Yeah. Let's move on the high school recruiting front here. This happened the evening that I was preparing to go to the hospital to have a second baby. Obviously not me having the baby. My wife did all the work there. And I have learned, based off of conversations with her, other people she's had, I was wrong to assume that having a C-section was an easier option the first time through. So hand up, that's on me. Guys, they're having babies one way or the other. It's hard. We just should shut our mouths. I learned that lesson. Again, I still think you're asking me, can you cut it out of me or do I have to push it out of me? I would probably say cut it out of me, but I know that the aftermath of that, it's a harder recovery process, as they say. So I don't know. I'm learning. Second kid, I'm learning some of this stuff. Not necessarily how to be a better dad. Kids are still using batteries as chapstick around here, but maybe what I say as a better husband to a wife that has kids now. But what happened right before I left, Ian Premer announced his top 5 that he will focus on as we enter official visit season. and what moves might be on the horizon for the top player in the state of Kansas. Another great tight end from the western half of the state. I'm not going to call Great Bend Western Kansas. Some people might. We'll have that discussion, I'm sure, once again at some other point. What did you make of Ian Premer's top 5 that he put out, Drew?
Yeah, to be honest, the only real surprise with the top 5 of K-State, Notre Dame, Iowa State, KU, and Michigan, the only real surprise was Michigan being the 5th team. I thought that it could have been Miami. It could have been Oregon. It could have been Michigan. So that was the real only intrigue that I had. But you come away from that, and now big picture going into official visit season, I think that there's 2, maybe even 3 tiers of like where Premer's recruitment is right now. The first tier is K-State, Notre Dame. I think that that's probably the top 2 as it stands right now. Iowa State's close, so you could argue that they're in that first tier, but they might be in a tier kind of on their own. And then I think that KU and Michigan are on that bottom tier because I think that they're the 2 teams that I think are kind of out of this already. And it's really kind of a top 2, maybe top 3, kind of interchangeable on how that ends up playing out. But I would say that there was no real surprise. Like the thing that was probably the most helpful out of that top 5 was he also had official visit dates in that top 5.
Yeah, I was gonna bring that up next. It's not just that we know the top 5; it's that Michigan is going to start at the end of this month. That'll be May 30th through June 1st. Then the visit number 2 will be KU, June 6th through the 8th, so a full week after. And then just a day in between, being in Lawrence, he will then go to South Bend. That's June 10th through June 12th. And then this is just like this is a master class of a Kansas family road trip right here. The Premers will be in Lawrence, and then they will be in South Bend, and then they'll start to loop back around. They'll be in Ames the day after Notre Dame, June 13th through the 15th. Then they'll likely return home and a couple days off there. 5 days later, the final official visit will commence June 20th through the 22nd. Premer will be at K-State. Similar, obviously, to Lincoln Cure last year, the number one of the top players in the state, top tight end, ends up having his last official visit to K-State. And as he told it, his commitment, like that was one of the things that pushed it over the top, was the emotion and getting to talk there and everything that happened on his visit in Manhattan. And he made the decision there, and we obviously found out that first week of July. So good sign for K-State in the way that the visits fall. Like, it sometimes means nothing, but it can mean everything in college football recruiting, Drew. So I want you to put yourself in the shoes of every team, and based off of when the official visit is scheduled, what you're telling yourself, good or bad, in that situation. So if you are Michigan and your official visit number 1 for Ian Premer, what are you telling yourself?
I would kind of tend to think that I am more out of it than not, because I think that this will be kind of like that first weekend of July-ish commitment announcement. So like I'd feel kind of bad about that, because what is also fascinating to me is like I would want to know who's got their visit scheduled in what order, because I know that K-State was first, wanting that last weekend. So really, we can't even do this date by date, but I'll give you like team by team.
Okay, that's fine too.
In the order, if I felt good, if I was K-State and I got the first visit scheduled and it was that last weekend of June, which K-State loves to do for the in-state prospects. They did that for Caden Massey as well. I would feel really good, because that means that was the only official visit he had scheduled for a long, long, long time. If I was a second team, I'd still feel pretty good. If I was that 5th team that got the visit scheduled, though, I'd feel pretty bad. I'd feel like it's over if I was the 5th team.
All right. So you're saying if you're Michigan right now, you're sitting around the office, you're Sharon Moore, you just got suspended for 2 games, and now you're being smacked across the face, and you're like, man, we don't even have a chance for Ian Premer.
you chose to get suspended for 2 games and even picked the 2 games, so I don't feel bad for him.
Hilarious that in 2025, teams in the Big Ten are volunteering to suspend their head coach against Nebraska. Okay.
Yes.
All right. So Michigan, they're sitting around, they're feeling like crap. They're looking good in all their Jordan gear, but they feel like crap because you're not getting Ian Premer. KU, they're sitting there, second visit for Ian Premer, June 6th through the 8th, obviously. So that'll start 2 weeks before the final visit that Premer will take. What are you telling yourself if you're the Jayhawks?
I would say puncher's chance would be like my scale on like what is it happening. And it's really just puncher's chance because I believe that June 6th through the 8th is going to be like the big KU weekend where all of the in-state guys that they have committed will also be in Lawrence. So like you never know, but I
Yeah.
still think that KU is like a distant fourth out of the top 3.
So the thing you're doing if you're sitting there and you're Lance Leipold, you're going, hey, we're going to bring him in, all these Kansas guys, and he's going to be like, that's a Kansas kid. That's a Kansas kid. I'm a Kansas kid. Let's just play at Kansas. That's the pitch there, I guess, that you're going for. Okay, Notre Dame, third visit, 10th through 12th.
Notre Dame, you're probably feeling pretty good because that's the team that has been the one that I've really heard about the most as like the thorn in K-State side. So you're feeling pretty good. And you did just make the national championship game, so you're doing something right in that standpoint. They've also had a lot of good tight end lineage. Is close enough to home that isn't like super far, and like I think that's what kind of got rid of Oregon and Miami. Really, kind of thinking about this from a critical big picture standpoint is like all five of these schools are close enough that it's not like one is like across the country.
Yeah. All right. Iowa State, June 13th through the 15th. They are the penultimate visit for Ian Premer.
Again, you're probably feeling pretty good because you're closer to the decision that he'll probably make. Again, you're still close enough to home that it's drivable. What is fascinating is just kind of where do all these dominoes line up? Because I think that Iowa State, again, is that constant third team that is mentioned. I don't really know what their tight end board looks like. I know that they're going after Isaac Jensen from Nebraska as well. So just kind of a fascinating recruitment because nobody really knows a whole lot. And then the timing can be a little bit tricky on how official visits work with announcements. But I would feel pretty good if I was Iowa State, just like I'd feel pretty good if I was Notre Dame.
And then K-State, the last one, is conventional wisdom in recruiting right now. Still, that last visit is the one that you want.
Yeah, it's probably the one that you want the most because you know what you have to compare against. And this is where I do throw caution to some people that say like, oh, you want the last visit. You want the last visit when you know the kid really, really well. And you know that he's not going to make a commitment before he comes to visit you. Because there are times where like in the transfer portal or even like with some high school prospects, like I think that you want that first visit because if you really think that you're going to get him and really are pressing to get somebody, you'd rather have the first crack than the last crack. But if you know that he's going to commit in like July-ish or August, like you probably want that last visit because you're the one that really gets to be the one that really closes the book on official visits, and you know what he's done at the other schools. You know what he's done at your school before. So like you're trying to come up with more unique things to do at your school. And you're also the one that's the last visit before the commitment. So you probably want the last one, but again, it's so case by case and varies on how well do you know. Because like I go back to this, and I've said this a few times when we've talked about like scheduling official visits or not. I remember because I was one of the people that was like, what the heck is K-State doing not having Jordan Allen come in on an official visit in the summer of 2022 as a 2023 prospect because he'd gone to Missouri and he's gone to Iowa State. Well, K-State knew that he wasn't planning on committing until like August or September. K-State gets the visit for the first home game of the season in 2022. And what do you know? Jordan Allen commits like 4 days later. So I think that it all comes down to how well do you know the person that you're recruiting.
Yeah. Okay. That is what we've got there. Those are all the things that I missed. Oh, wait, we got to finish off. I don't want to miss this. K-State had a trio of guys end up getting drafted. We talked last year about the fits and everything that worked out. The first one off the board was Jacob Parrish, another DB that goes to the Buccaneers from K-State. How do you like the situation for Jacob Parrish in Tampa?
Yeah, it's a good situation because he's going to be in line to play early because Tampa's defense last year was near the bottom in pass defense and near the bottom overall. So they needed a lot of defensive help. And I think that Parrish will be in that running to start as a nickel day one in Tampa Bay.
Next player off the board for K-State. So Parrish was a third-round guy. Fifth round, DJ Giddens goes to the Colts. What is the situation for DJ Giddens in Indianapolis?
Fascinating because Jonathan Taylor has an injury history that's pretty long at this point. He's getting older, but is obviously a really, really good player. What is kind of ironic is like going into the draft, I remember talking with you about like an ideal situation would be DJ Giddens in San Francisco because it's that kind of downhill offense with Christian McCaffrey, and Christian McCaffrey has a long injury history. Well, Indianapolis isn't quite that same downhill style, but they're a physical team that's really built around the run game, and Anthony Richardson's a mobile quarterback. And then Jonathan Taylor doesn't typically play the whole season. So if DJ can get into that second string running back, he's going to be in position to maybe start a game, at least one game, as a rookie.
Yeah, they also, I think, added Khalil Herbert in the offseason, former KU and Virginia Tech running back. But I think that's a good spot for DJ Giddens. And we kind of mentioned it in a couple of different places or talking back and forth. Kind of funny that the GM of the Colts, his son was a teammate with Devin Neal for a couple of years, and Devin Neal's still on the board. They took DJ Giddens over the guy that, Cole Ballard had played with his dad being the GM of the Colts. So
yes.
He watched that game the last 2 years, was like, damn, this Giddens kid, he's impressive. We need to make him a Colt. All right. Last ad in the draft for K-State was Marquise Siegel. Our guy Stonehands is going to San Francisco. What does this situation look like for Marquise Siegel?
Yeah. Again, San Francisco, like we talked about with DJ Giddens, they're just getting older and they want to get younger and they want to get faster. And kind of looking into some San Francisco people and what they're saying about Siegel is that there's a potential for Siegel to even get playing time and maybe even start as a rookie. I will say that the one thing that he's going to have to do probably right away, and if he wants to kind of get in that starting position, he's going to have to work as a special teams guy. And I know that that'll be no problem for him.
All right. That is our little update on the draft. That is everything that I think I missed while I was out and being an okay father, I think. Let's set the stage now for what we're going to do the rest of the summer, or most of the summer coming up, because we are getting into that time now where things are slowing down. K-State only has really 4 scholarships on the basketball front that we think that they could use the rest of the way. One, at least, of those seems to maybe be spoken for, or at least we think so. So not much more going to happen on the basketball front, because we know that they really kind of keep things tucked away until the season gets started, and they're kind of forced to open up a little bit more at like media day and then after games and everything. So I don't expect a ton on the basketball front that's uber newsworthy, and you really just don't get that this time of the year. And then football, yes, next month we'll kick off official visits. We'll have those and recruiting updates, but Guys aren't going to be doing a lot around campus there. And we'll have recruiting updates every Thursday throughout the summer. We'll get back onto that schedule of things. So every Thursday, we'll bring you a football recruiting update. We'll throw basketball stuff in there as it needs to be, but we'll primarily keep those focused on football. And then a couple of things, just again, peak off-season content coming your way. I need to go look to see how it started last night. Okay, so let's go to credit Doc Holliday 1887 on the board. He posted a tweet from Pigskin Petey on Twitter with a picture of some random quarterback from Syracuse. And it said, who is the worst quarterback to start a game for your team since 2010? And he said, should have made a poll. So, of course, everybody goes in there. They start throwing some names out there. Yeah, somebody might have said Joe Huebner. And look, a younger me, I would have been all in on the Joe Huebner bashing. John Kurtz kind of bashed it out of me, as he does a lot of things, because he's like, well, like, it's not fair to him. Oh, he's a great guy, all this. It's not his fault he was in that position. Yeah, okay. But kind of the worst quarterback that I saw for a while growing up in a K-State family. Is like 2015 was miserable for me. Shout out to Cody Cook and all that.
Yeah,
but
that's also a fascinating thread. Go look at it on KSO. Subscribe and go look. Because there were one of the first replies was like that K-State had a wide receiver start at quarterback, and I was like the first one to say he wasn't even the worst quarterback of that season.
Yes, yeah. So there was that. Also, not cool. Meat Geek on the board. He said Alex Delton started a game or two. Do not bring the Hayes Hurler into this. That is my guy. We don't talk about Alex Delton like that, even though the Bueller Crusaders in 2014 shredded him. But that is because he had no help on that Hayes High football team. So there's all this stuff going on. But then it got me thinking, okay, it would be hilarious if in the offseason we just ranked every quarterback that played a significant amount of time in any game since Ron Prince at K-State. This is a good activity for you and I to do. Here's why we start at Ron Prince. That is a comical era of football at K-State. We know that, unfortunately. It's still kind of funny to think that Ron Prince, like, the best he could do was win 7 games in the season when he had a first-round quarterback and then NFL receivers, Jordy Nelson and Yaman Figures on his roster. Also, other guys that also play in the NFL. Like, he had a lot more NFL talent than Bill Snyder even did on the team that won like the Big 12 title in 2012. Ron Prince was crapping the bed with those guys. He is looking like Hattie Voth after, bottle number 3 at 3 a.m. It's getting dicey in that bassinet, and Ron Prince is just pooping all over the place. So I was like, what? And for us, we were 8 years old that first Ron Prince season. So, yeah. Could we go back deeper? Should we? Maybe. Yes. Do you really want the thoughts of guys that were, talking about pooping their pants? When Michael Bishop and the 98 Cats were pooping their pants in St. Louis, I was also pooping my pants because I was 8 months old. So I can't tell you what was going on with Michael Bishop there. So we are going to start this offseason. We are going to go through all the quarterbacks since Ron Prince that either started a game or like, hey, this game was there, because Jaron Lewis didn't start that game at Oklahoma State, but I was there. He played a lot of it. And even though that was still bad, Will Howard, I contend K-State might win that game if Will Howard gets to play the whole time. Jaron Lewis had no shot, but still very funny, the play where it looked like he was tackled and the ball just squirts out and Deuce Vaughn takes it the rest of the way for a touchdown. So touchdown pass for Jaron Lewis, one more than I'm ever going to have in college football. So props to him on that. So we will go through every Friday. We'll break it down. We'll start ranking guys. We'll start at the bottom, work to the top. We'll get through that. There will be also coinciding written pieces at KSO to go with it, kind of a guide. We'll go a little deeper into it. And then you'll have obviously the podcast and video to go with it as well. And then once we get to the end of that, we'll start off some Mount Rushmores of each position from K-State. So there was something that triggered that. DY had this idea. He threw it to us. And then this also is good because Drew is still in the midst of this all-time player draft that was organized by the K-State fan on Twitter, which
I'm locked and loaded at every position.
I said I would do. And he's like, hey, I'll get you for basketball. I was like, that's good for me. I would much rather do basketball. And it's a good thing it happened too, because this started on a Monday. A couple days later is when the kid was born. That draft is still going. If I'm sitting there and I'm thrown out there that I want Alisana on the offensive line, my wife would have killed me. It's like, you've got a child over here. Take care of her. Change a diaper. Don't be talking about Alisana. So we're going to do that. We got that all incorporated. Drew's locked and loaded. He's got all that. So we'll go through all that. But that'll be some fun off-season stuff. But then Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, it'll be normal KSO show stuff that you would come to expect. Thursday, recruiting updates. And then Friday, we'll have some fun. Just guys throwing out names, shooting the crap on, the glory days or not so glory days when we talk about
well, when we start at the bottom, it's the not so glory days.
Yeah, that's true. Well, that's going to be what's fascinating about this is like which quarterbacks are going to populate the bottom and where do they factor in on certain teams. But if you think about it, K-State maybe compared to a lot of other teams has had less starting quarterbacks during that stretch than a lot of others,
Yeah, no, that is true.
So we'll dive into it, and that should be fun. We'll get that started this Friday. Drew and I will kind of work together throughout the rest of this week to start compiling that list, and we'll start slowly releasing it and discussing it and go from there. So that is what we have scheduled for now. If you got any suggestions or things you want to see at KSO, go sign up. If you're not, go to the message boards, call us out, say something, tell us whatever you want. We'll take it into consideration. We're all about you guys. We want to have fun, want to give you the K-State info and talk that you want as well. So we'll get out of here. Long show to catch everything back up. Happy Cinco de Mayo to everybody out there. The Royals are good at baseball again, so that's fun. Elliot Voth, quit sticking that in your mouth. Bad move. Not going to be good for your teeth. We're all about good oral hygiene in this house. Never had a cavity in my life. We're going to try and keep it that way. I don't want busted teeth for my 1.5-year-old child either. So I'm going to get whatever she's doing taken care of. Drew's going to, he's still like 2.5 hours away from eating dinner because he and his wife, heathens out there just sitting around waiting until midnight to eat supper, apparently.
Okay, it's like 7:30, 8 o'clock. You got to chill out a little bit there.
It's just, look, it's 5:30 right now for me. I'm normally eating supper at this point with my family because we're like,
that's crazy.
We're encroaching upon like getting everybody ready for bed and everything. So different worlds, different Americas for Mason Voth and Drew Galloway. We'll get out of here. We'll talk to everybody again tomorrow. Shorter show, and we'll talk some more football tomorrow. Get onto that wagon. So we're out of here. Thanks for watching and enjoying the KSO show today.